Hi there, and welcome to Time to Talk Traumatic Brain Injury, the podcast for survivors by survivors for the entire brain injury community, helping you live a more productive, healthy, and happy life. This podcast features Kelly Tuttle. Kelly is a brain-loving neurology nurse practitioner and a traumatic brain injury survivor. She strives to share her coping strategies and tools and helps other TBI patients continue to work and study while they heal. She has certainly done that with her writing of her book, After the Crash, which we discuss today. We are the workers and facilitators in the brain injury community, and we must invest in individuals living with brain injuries instead of only using brain injury survivors to promote our agenda. They are all worth the investment. When a podcast is about including their voice, thoughts, and questions, no longer are they passengers, but sit in the driver's seat and lead the way. Well, in the podcast business, you got to be ready for anything. And what happened was Dawn, our other host, who I invited to come and do the interview with me, brought her grandkids here from upstairs. They're staying for Easter weekend. And these grandkids were quite loud in the background, and that was really interfering with our conversation with Kelly Tuttle. So what I did is I took the kids out into the hallway and let Dawn conduct this interview completely on her own, which I think is a wonderful idea for brain injury survivors to show what they can do when they have the opportunity to do so. So here we are. Dawn is giving her first live podcast interview on TBI Talks, the podcast, and let's have a listen to how she did. Congratulations, Dawn, on being your first podcast. Let's have a listen. So listen, I want to thank you very much for talking to us in the Blue Sea Clubhouse. We're here in Victoria, British Columbia. And first, I want to congratulate you on that fantastic book. It was really, really something. It's going to help a lot of brain injury survivors to live a healthy and productive life once again. It was quite something. Thank you very much, Kelly, for this book.
Oh, thank you so much. That speaks to my heart, because that was the goal and the intent was, to help people out and make them feel less alone and kind of empower them to get better.
Take it away, Dawn.
Okay, I remember when I was in the hospital recovering from my brain injury, I found it difficult and frustrating to read because my short-term memory was so bad. That got me thinking about how difficult it must have been to actually write a book after sustaining your head injury. There are so many components to creating such a written book. Did you find it difficult to write?
Well, let's see. No, because after my brain injury, I turned into a really creative person. Before my brain injury, I was very logical, organized, goal-oriented. And then after my brain injury, I became very creative and got into crafting and, writing and just decorating my home and upping the ante on my fashion. So I really enjoyed writing my book, but I'll tell you, it was difficult to write the first chapter, and it was difficult to figure out how to start it. So what I decided to do was I started in the middle in writing my book, and that was the strategies and tools and compensatory tools that are in the book. That was the easiest to write, and then I wrote the end of the book. That was the second hardest to write, and then finally I had to write that last chapter, and that was the toughest, kind of introducing the book and so forth. And I put some statistics in it, very few. I didn't want the book to start off dry or boring.
Right.
But I enjoyed the writing process. I didn't do it on my own, though. I did have writing coaches to help me with it, and some wonderful editors to polish it off and make it look great.
I see. It's a very well-written book.
Thank you. And I credit my writing coaches for that, because I was not a writer before I started writing the book. I worked in nursing, and we do a lot of charting, but it's like short and to the point, and not too interesting. So I learned a lot about writing, and I really enjoyed the process. And I think in doing so, it really helped my brain recovery as I was learning new things as I went along that
That,
journey.
that's great. What was the hardest thing for you to recover from after your head injury? Cognitive issues, emotional issues, physical handicaps after sustaining a head injury, and why?
Um, it initially the hardest thing was recovering from the whiplash, and the headaches were horrible. I had a headache most days of the week for 4 years.
Oh, that's
So
awful.
that was pretty tough. Um, and then the headaches finally resolved. My neck healed. Um, the cognitive fatigue, the neuro fatigue, has been the most impactful on my lifestyle. It was there at the beginning. After the brain injury, I slept a lot. I could sleep 12, 14 hours and get up and take a 2-hour nap. And that slowly has decreased. Now I have to have 8 to 9 hours of sleep every night. And if I do something extra physically, like go on a hike, or I work diligently at the computer, pushing my parameters of my time frame, then I end up needing 10 to 12 hours of sleep to recover still. So those were the toughest.
Yeah, I can relate. I'm also a brain injury survivor. I was in the hospital and I got overdosed on a pain medication given by injection. I was in a coma for 30 hours.
Like a really nice system.
It is.
A lot of the in the U.S., a lot of people will have concussions or traumatic brain injuries, and they don't seek care because they're worried about the cost. And if they do and go in and see their doctor, um, there there's for outpatient care, meaning patients that people who aren't in the hospital. There's very little support and guidance on how to get better after a brain injury.
That
If you're
needs to
lucky,
change.
you get referred to a physical medicine and rehab doctor who here in the U.S. they provide care for the central nervous system, the brain and spine injuries, and they may refer you to physical therapy or speech therapy or occupational therapy. But there isn't. It's not common to be referred to a brain injury center to recover.
That needs to change.
Yes, yes. And that was kind of like one of the reasons why I wrote my book. I really wanted practical things that people could implement on their own without having to see a specialist, because the out-of-pocket costs can be prohibitive, especially if you're on disability and unable to work.
Very true.
Did you have any other questions,
Yeah,
Sarah?
I really appreciated how easy it was to read and follow the story. Did you write the book in such a manner to appeal to the demographic that you knew would be reading the book after the crash?
Yes, I kept my reader in mind the entire time I wrote my book, because as I had said before, I was super bummed out after my injury because I lost one of my favorite hobbies, which was reading a book and learning. And so it was very important that my book was straight to the point, got to the tools and strategies as quickly as possible. But the chapters were short, that they were broken up so that would allow brain breaks and eye breaks. And then at the end of each chapter, there's that recap list that can be referenced quickly after you read it. Maybe down the road, you want to look back at the recommendations on sound sensitivity or light sensitivity. Those lists are there. and available. But yeah, it was really important that the book was super easy to read. I wanted the paper to be kind of a cream color rather than white. So it's a little bit softer on the eyes, and the font was a readable eye font.
Yeah, I found it really easy to read.
Well, I'm really super glad to hear that because that was one of my goals.
No, I really enjoyed it. It was really well written.
Thank you. Thank you.
I found that your chapter on sleep really stressed the importance of how the brain needs sleep and rest in order to heal and control emotions, especially your sense of rage and motor skills. Did you find that you were always tired in the beginning?
Yes. Um, I did initially, after my injury, have some difficulty with sleep. I had some night terrors and nightmares related to car accidents. Um, and that I did have for about 4 or 5 months after I had some difficulty with fragmented sleep. That's when you're able to fall asleep, but then you wake up in the middle of the night, and then you can't go to sleep for an hour or two. And
I can
I
relate.
found that eventually that resolved. I took some melatonin that helped with that. And after that, then I was able to sleep very, very well. But as you know, neuro fatigue is not resolved with sleep or rest. It's always persistent, no matter how much rest or sleep you get. But getting this 7 to 9 hours of sleep, which is recommended in the book, really helps with mood modulation, like you said. It helps with the immune system, taking care of any brain debris that needs to be cleaned out. It helps with memory. When you sleep that long, the 7 to 9 hours of sleep, you allow the hippocampus, a part of the brain that stores everything you've learned during the day, to download that information into the cortex of the brain. If you're getting less than 7 hours of sleep, 6 hours of sleep or less, that download time is cut off and not allowed, and then you'll struggle with learning and memory. So that's one of the other things that sleep helps with.
Yeah, that's good to know. I slept quite a bit during my recovery in the very beginning.
And how long were you sleeping?
I would get up in the morning, I'd probably be up for 3 hours, and I'd have to take a nap. And I'd be down for 2 or 3
Yes.
hours.
Yep. That sounds about right.
Yeah, it was really frustrating.
Now, how much do you have to sleep now?
Now I can go to bed, I can get 8 to 12 hours, and I'm good for the day. I don't need to nap.
Oh, wow. See, that's progress.
Yeah,
Yeah, me too. I don't need the naps anymore like I did before.
that's great.
Yeah.
I'm also really happy that my brain's healed enough that I can look after my grandkids. I can have them overnight and stuff.
Oh, yeah, that's nice. That's wonderful. And your grandkids, I'm sure, love that too.
They do.
And did you have any issues with light sensitivity?
I didn't, actually.
Oh, that's good. That's good. What about sound sensitivity?
No,
Oh, wow, that's good. What were your struggles?
my
See, everyone's
struggles were
different.
mainly short term memory. My long term memory has always been fine. It's short term memory.
Oh, okay. Okay. What are some of the things you forget?
Phone numbers, where I put my phone down, um, appointments, a lot of things. I have to put reminders in my phone and set alarms.
Yeah, I do too. I'm easily distracted, and if I have an appointment, I have to set my alarm because I might get busy into doing something, and I will completely be immersed in that, whatever I'm doing, and completely forget, that I had an appointment, or, that I plan to do something at such and such a time. So I definitely rely on my setting an alarm, especially if I'm going to get into something, and I will need to break my focus and look and realize that I have an appointment that I need to attend.
Yeah, I do the same.
And I rely really heavily on a calendar. I use a paper calendar that is a month at a glance,
Yeah.
and I put all my appointments and everything in there, and it kind of helps me better plan ahead using a month rather than a week. Because
Yeah.
if I don't see it, I forget it's there.
I can
So if I
relate.
had a week planner, I would only think about that week and then forget the next couple weeks.
Yeah. Memory is a very difficult thing to deal with.
Mhm. Yeah, I had to organize like my kitchen, and I had to put things in clear containers so I could see, what I had. If it was in a closed container, I would forget what was in it. If I did have a container that wasn't clear, I wrote labels on the outside,
Yeah.
and that helped me remember what was in there. And so I even still have labels in my kitchen on stuff to remember, what's there, and where to find it. And then I have special places for my keys and so forth. And I put them there every time. That way, I don't lose or forget where they are, and it doesn't hamper my time management, getting out of the house on time.
Yeah, that's a good strategy. Actually, that's one that I dealt with actually when I moved out on my own.
Yeah, having everything having its own place is a great way to not waste any brain energy trying to find things, and to better manage your time when you're
Definitely.
trying to come or go from home.
Definitely. That and having a cell
And
phone when you're out really helps too, because you've got everything you need in your phone.
yes, yeah. I put a lot of things in my phone, but I still use a notebook for my to-do list, and the calendar, because I haven't been, once I put something in the app sometimes on my phone, I'll forget that it's there. Whereas the old school notebook sitting next to me reminds me that it's there, and I have a to-do list.
See, I've always had an issue with pen to paper since my brain injury. I have a hard time writing things down. So that's why I've reverted back to my
Oh,
phone.
yeah. So do you do like text to talk when you put stuff down in your phone?
I do.
All right, right on.
And I use my notebook in my phone to write myself my notes and my grocery lists.
Yeah, that's good. And do you is what is it that makes it hard for you to write? Is it the hand movement? Is it your vision?
I think it's just my messy handwriting.
I know what you mean. Mine hasn't always been the best either. But in 2020, I made a goal to try to improve my handwriting, and I think it really helped with my brain healing, because I had to sit there and really focus on the writing, and creating letters, and it was kind of like a mindful practice for me.
That's good to know.
Yeah, and my handwriting did improve. But it took like 4 years.
I found one of the most frustrating things in my healing in the very beginning was reading, because I would finish a chapter and I couldn't remember what I had just read rather.
Oh, have you tried doing Audible books? Are you able to remember better if you've listened to the book?
Not really. But now I can read
Oh,
full
okay.
books. Now I'm back into reading and I'm really enjoying it. It
Oh,
just took a
that's
while
good.
for my brain to heal to the point where I could read and enjoy it.
Uh-huh. I talked to another person who had a stroke, and they said before their brain injury, they weren't really into reading, and then after the stroke, it became even harder. And what they do is they would get the book and the Audible book, and then listen to the book as their eyes followed along with the words in the book, and that helped them read and learn and remember what they were reading. And I thought that was a very good recommendation.
That is a really good way of doing it.
Yeah, I would have never thought of that. I was more of a either or. And so I thought, wow, that's a great idea. I'm going to share that with everyone I talk to who struggles with reading after a brain injury.
That's really good.
Yeah. And I also read a book about a brain injury survivor, and she had difficulty with reading also, and she was able to start her reading recovery by reading poems. And I was like, oh, that's a really good idea. So I started getting, contemporary modern poems, and I started reading those because they're short. They're short, and you get a sense of accomplishment once you've read through it. And, you get that little bit of practice of reading on paper, the text. And so I thought that was a really good recommendation. And then I moved from reading poems to reading comic books because, again, there's the short words, but you also get to enjoy the art and in the comic books. And there's the episodes in the comic books are short, and so you get like a sense of accomplishment when you finish it. And then after that, I was able to start reading regular books.
I see.
What are the books that you enjoy reading?
I enjoy John Grisham, Patricia Cornwell, and Catherine Coulter.
Okay. I don't know those authors. What kind of books are those?
John Grisham writes a lot of law books. Like he was a lawyer before he became an author. So a lot of his books are law related.
And was it Patricia Grisham?
Patricia Cornwell.
Oh, Cornwell. What did she write?
She writes books from a medical examiner's point of view, and her best friend is Pete Marino, who's a cop. So they end up going to all these murder investigations together. And she ends up doing the autopsy and figuring out why they died.
Oh, okay. Neat.
Yeah.
Did you have any difficulty with walking or your balance?
Right after my brain injury, when I woke up from my coma, I did, because my brain hadn't healed enough to tell my legs what to do.
Mm-hmm.
But then that slowly worked out, and then I was able to walk again, so I was fine.
And how's your balance?
My balance is fine.
Oh, wow, that's good.
Did you have an issue with balance?
I did have an issue with balance, and I still have it. It's gotten a little bit better, but every once in a while I'll walk into a wall.
Oh no. Do you have children?
I do. I have a 20-year-old and a 14-year-old.
How is
No, a
this?
21-year-old. She just turned 21. Oh, I hope she didn't hear me say that.
How did your brain injury affect your children?
It was hard because um, we were as a family we were really active and outgoing before my brain injury, and so my kids got lots of play dates and went to lots of birthday parties, and we traveled. And then after my brain injury, yeah, all that stopped, and that was hard. Because they missed out on play dates and seeing their friends and stuff like that. Um,
Did you lose your
that was
license?
definitely a big change.
Did you lose your license to drive?
No, fortunately, I didn't. But I did at one point, about 3 months after my car accident. I was trying to push really hard to get back into my old life, and I hadn't realized the impact of my concussion on my functional abilities. And I was pushing and pushing and pushing myself to get back to work. And one evening on the way home from work, I fell asleep at the wheel and woke up just in time to slam on the brake and prevent my car from crashing into a tree.
Oh no.
Yeah. And shortly after that, I told a friend, and my friend said, "Oh, you need to get help," because I hadn't gotten any help. Prior to that, I had seen my primary care doctor, who said, "Oh, you have a concussion. You should be better in 2 weeks." And so I was operating on the fact that I should be getting better, and I needed to keep pushing myself. And then that happened, and then I told a colleague of mine, and he was like, "No, that's not good. You need to see a physical medicine rehab doctor. You need to get a brain scan." I hadn't even had a brain scan before. And from that point of seeing the physical medicine rehab doctor, I finally got on the right road to recovery and learned a lot about, what was going on with me. Why was I sleeping so much, and why was I struggling with my memory? And so that started me on the right road of discovering what was going on, and then using tools and strategies to support myself to be more successful in my return to work. Yeah, so that it's very easy for someone after a concussion or brain injury to not be aware about what's going on and the things that they need, and for their life to be significantly impacted, such as like losing their job. As you know, with brain injuries, you have more difficulty with mood modulation. So then you may lose important relationships in your life. And if you lose your job, then you lose your income. And if you lose your relationships, you lose your support. And you could become anxious or depressed or even suicidal. And you could, things can spiral. So it's really important that people know that if you do have a impact to your head, or you have a sudden acceleration or deceleration of your body, your neck, or your head, to get evaluated and monitored to make sure that you don't suffer the consequences alone from a brain injury.
Thank you very, very much, Kelly, for being part of this. It's really important. I think it's great to give Dawn some open time and some independence. And this is the first time we've had a survivor do a podcast on their own. So I think it's going to be really great to have Dawn and have that responsibility. So thank you for letting her do that.
Oh, it's my pleasure. We had a great discussion.
Good. I can't wait to get back and have a listen to it. And I think it's really important just to let Dawn do her thing and open the door for these guys and let them explore who they are and what their limitations are and do the best they can with what they have.
Yeah, we were exchanging ideas of how to improve our recovery and
Yes.
read and our memory and stuff. That was great.
Yeah, Dawn is one of the most advanced survivors we have. We've had Dawn here for what, 4 or 5 years now. Three or four, and she's just a wonderful, wonderful person who's always in Clubhouse and giving back and doing lots of creative stuff. So it's so nice to have Dawn do this podcast for us. We're very, very happy.
Oh yeah, she did great. I had fun talking to her.
Well, great. Well,
is she still there?
Yes, she is. Here, Dawn. Go ahead.
Hi.
I really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you so much, Dawn.
You're very welcome. I enjoyed talking to you as well. I also enjoyed reading your book. It was very, very informative.
The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are solely those of the Time to Talk TBI panel and other contributors. These views and opinions do not necessarily represent those of the Cridge Center for the Family Brain Injury Services staff. We value your feedback and comments. Please send us an email, or if you have any questions about brain injury, email us at tbipodcasts@cridge.org.
The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are solely those of the Time to Talk TBI panel and other contributors. These views and opinions do not necessarily represent those of the Cridge Center for the Family Brain Injury Services staff. We value your feedback and comments. Please send us an email at tbipodcasts@cridge.org.